Boom. Boom. We did it. We did it. All right. All right. So, guys, I also invited Carlos the Gladiator onto the call. He's a master of replacements. So is Joe Likens, both masters of replacements. Guys, as you come on, go ahead and mute your line. All right. So without further ado, Mr. Joe, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you, man. Thank you so much for being on. And Carlos Gladiator, I know you were in the field training. How you feeling today, sir?
I'm doing great, ready for the call. Ready. I got my notes and everything, man.
All right, good. Thank you for tuning in with us. All right, so let's go into this first. We got about 36 people or so on the call. So glad. Let's start off with you, Joe. Okay, let's start off with you, man. Here's the thing, guys. 50% of the business that you're going to write is going to come by way of a replacement. It's true. So many people, when they first start into this business with the company, they think that when somebody tells them they have life insurance, that they're like, oh, I missed my opportunity to sell. Let me get out of here. No, guys. When you've had a little experience in this business and with this company, man, when people say they have life insurance, you should be happy. Why is that? Well, most of the people that we deal with, most of the people we see are in underperforming policies or in the wrong type of policies. They're being overcharged for the insurance that they have, and they send us, the NASB experts, into the building to get that upgraded for these individuals, guys. We really want to leave these people better off than we found them, and becoming a master of replacements will, number one, help the client and leave them better than we found them. And number two, well, it'll make us more money, right? So, Joe, first off, what's extremely important, though we upgrade and replace a lot of business here, we want to do the right replacement. We want to do an ethical replacement, guys. We want to leave people better off than we found them. Listen, just because you can make the sale doesn't mean you always should make the sale. Guys, treat the people that you come into contact with like you'd want somebody to treat your mom, like you'd want someone to treat your dad, the people that you love, because guess what? Somebody loved these people, right? So let's treat them that way. So speak to Joe, ethical replacements, brother.
Yeah, I think the terminology that we like to use is upgrade versus replacement. And I think when you look at the ethical side of the equation, if you are upgrading their situation truly, it's an ethical reason to replace it. So don't even think about it as replacing. Is if you can upgrade the situation, then it can make sense if they're healthy. And that's a key as well. The math may work, the situation may work, but if they're past their 2-year contestability, even though we have day one coverage, we all know that if they pass during that 2 years, they have teams of people that are going to try to void that claim. So we want to make sure they're healthy, and we want to make sure that we're upgrading their current position. We find them or leave them better than we found them.
So let me ask you this. When do you think, even though you can make the sale, when is it not ethical? Speak to that. Somebody say, well, I don't know what's ethical, what's unethical. Speak to that, please.
Yeah, so I think we have our 8 reasons of why we think are ethical replacements that are there. Just replacing to replace because they like you. People will, as you create a bond with them, say, well, I want you to do my insurance. That's great. But again, if it's not going to leave them in a better place, it's not ethical. If we have to massage the health questions to get them approved, it's not ethical. Don't do it. And again, sometimes, like you said, we can make the sale, but it's not right to make the sale. And the replacement is probably the most scrutinized by not only the underwriters, but the regulators when it comes to the insurance business. They want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And I'm going to mute everybody, Joe. So just take yourself off of mute, Joe Carlos. I'm going to mute everyone so that way you're not getting any noise in the background. So guys, very important, right? Again, we want to make sure that we're doing the right replacement. Here's one thing you never want to do. Never replace a policy with a 2-year waiting period, right? I mean, that's kind of a given, but we should know that if you have somebody who started guaranteed issue policy, a year and a half ago, and maybe it still hasn't kicking into effect, right? Well, you don't want to do that, right? They got 6 months left. Let them go ahead and live out that 6 months, so that way we're not taking them out of those plans. So what are some other things, Joe? Anything else come to mind, brother?
As far as what's being unethical.
Unethical, right?
Yeah. So clearly, if they're in a waiting period and they're almost there, we certainly don't want to do that. Again, if we're kind of having to massage health questions, coach them through the call or whatever the case may be, and again, we have to look inside ourselves and are we truly helping these people? And if they passed away tomorrow, would they be better off?
Sure.
That's really just the answer of the day.
Yeah. And what about you, Carlos? Yeah, I see you got your hands up. Anything you want to add on to that?
Yes, I also kind of wanted to throw in there. I think we have a lot of new people. When we say graded, it's also very important that you guys understand that, however, some companies are out there who at certain age, doesn't matter if the client is completely healthy, they'll just put them on a 2-year waiting period. That is not what we're talking about here. For example, I think AIL, I think after the age of 65, they put them on a 4-year waiting period. It's a greater policy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can put them on a day one coverage. So that's not what they're talking about. They're just talking about whenever the client is, I don't know, what's something, dialysis, for example. If the client is on dialysis and they have a policy and then they only have 3 more months, right, to be over the 2-year waiting period, that's the kind of stuff that they're talking about, not in situations like AIL, Lincoln Heritage. I think after a certain age, they do all greater policies. That's not what they're talking about. Just kind of wanted to throw that there.
Sure. So let's speak to this. Such an important component or important piece in replacing business. Some people say, man, I can't get them to grab their policies. I can't get them to grab their policies. It's because they don't trust you guys, right? You haven't earned the right to ask to see their policy, right? You don't just come into the home and they say, yeah, I already got coverage. Yeah, go ahead and grab that policy. Well, you got to build something. What's step one? Connect, right? So speak to Carlos. I mean, just the importance of building rapport.
Yes, absolutely. So I agree 100% with Brian. A lot of people, when they are telling me, or that just we hear, man, they'll never give me their policy, or they're straight up tell me, don't worry about what I have. That's because you didn't build enough rapport. Now, it's very important that when you're building rapport, you're not doing 21 questions. That is not how you build rapport. You go from trying to make a friend to just interrogating somebody. The way we get people to trust us is by listening. How do you do that? You try to make a connection by asking open-ended questions. For an example, instead of asking, do you like living here? Right? That's a yes or no answer. Well, what you can do is first ask, well, how long have you been living here? 6 years. The next question should be, oh, okay, well, why did you guys decide to move here? Now they're gonna tell you why they moved there 6 years, why they decided to move there 6 years ago. Maybe they were renting, maybe the other place was way more expensive, maybe now that's their parent house. But it gets them talking to them a little bit more about themselves. Another thing that I want to talk about on how to build rapport is the moment that you park outside their house, you need to start paying attention to everything that's outside of their house. Whether they have little they have babies, they'll have some types of trampoline outside. Maybe people who like to fish, they'll have these big signs that says you can take the boy out of a fisherman, but I don't know, just something they're gonna brag about being a fisherman. That's something that you can bring up. If you're inside a house, especially with older people, seniors, they love me. Think about this. A lot of our seniors, and it's sad, but they're lonely. Sometimes their kids don't live at home anymore, or they don't get to see their own kids because they're all grown up. Grandkids, every now and then, go and just visit them. If you can spend a good 5 to 10 minutes with a senior, a grandma or a grandfather, just joking around, making jokes, connecting with them, they will give you all of their business. They will call their grandkids, they will call their sons, daughters, and give you a whole bunch of referrals, right? Now, in situations like this where, let me give an example. About 2 weeks ago, did a door knock. Lady wanted to talk to me about insurance, but she said, hey, if you're gonna do this, you got about 10 minutes. I have to go to the hospital because I have to decide if I have to put a plug on my brother or not. Well, guys, don't go straight into jumping into what we do. No, man. I sat down. I said, look, man, my condolences. This is how you make a connection. My condolences. I just went through that about a year ago with my dad. I don't want to put you, I don't want to rush you in anything. Go ahead and take your time. I'm going to be back next week. When I went back next week, we talked about it. How did it go? Have you guys set up the funeral? And now we're not talking about, I mean, obviously I'm going to end up making the sale, but now I'm there just trying to make sure she's okay and just communicating with her, trying to make an impact. Now, that's how you build rapport. Just don't ask questions. Go ahead and pay attention, and then look at family photos. Family photos, grandkids. A little joke that I like to throw there. So, who's your favorite grandkid? That will always laugh. It's a given. I think that's pretty much it on building rapport. Oh, one thing: don't build rapport too long, guys. Or I like to say you will get friend zone. And what I mean by that is they're gonna get comfortable and tell you no, I'm not interested, just because you cross that line. So about 5 to maybe 10 minutes of building rapport is fine. If you go over that, most likely you'll get friend zone, and they're just gonna be comfortable with telling you no, I'm not interested, or come back next week, or let me think about it. So make sure that you don't overdo it as well.
Absolutely. Guys, building rapport. What he said, now listen, you said, Brian, we're talking about replacements today. Well, you have to connect first. Very, very important point. Listen, y'all. Some of us, we don't listen very well, right? And so by listening, not only is that individual going to like you more, right? They're going to trust you more since you're listening, but you're also going to get valuable insight that you'll be able to use later in the presentation, right? They'll tell you, oh yeah, my family had Union National. We've been dealing with them for a long time. But if you're not listening to actually listen, and you're listening to just respond, guys, it's going to put you, in a spot that, well, I mean, you just won't have that intel that you need. Very, very important, right? So, Joe, do you have anything else on just building rapport, sir?
Yeah, I think with rapport, the important thing is to be authentic. You can't fake it. They're going to smell fake. They're going to see fake. If you're just trying to use, somebody else's joke that's not yours or whatever it is, they're gonna figure that out. I look at it. Maybe I'm a little narcissistic. Maybe just a little. That these people are here to entertain me, right? So I want to find something about them that I have a question about or query or something that just makes me, what is this? And if you actually take an interest and it's real, they'll feel that. And that'll be a way that you can connect. If you're just trying to make it up, they're going to get that. So be as authentic. Don't mind going off for a little bit of a rabbit hole, but be real. That's
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, guys, somebody might say, man, I just have trouble with them getting those policies. Joe, I'm going to stay with you on this one. How do
Mhm.
how do you phrase the question? Hey, go get your policies. What do you do, man, to get them to
Yeah.
go together?
So if the insurance companies are open, I don't ask them. I don't want the objection early
Say
on.
that again, one more time. Repeat that.
If it's during normal business hours and the insurance companies are open to take my phone call, I do not ask them to go get their policy. If they tell me it's in the vault, it's at their daughter's, they don't know where it is, it's just a reason for them to have a roadblock. I have to call the carrier anyway to find out what I'm going to find out. I just want to know who they're paying. All I really want to know is the name of the company. I don't care about anything else if it's during normal business hours. If it's afterwards and we have to do our own research into the policy, it's really, I ask a lot of questions, try to ferret out what the information is. And then it's kind of, hey, can we go find that? Because I'd really just like to verify that. But most of the time the carriers are open, and I just don't let them use that as an objection, because I'm going to use my cheat sheet and I'm going to call the carrier and I'm going to have the carrier hang themselves.
So question, when calling the carrier, I mean, how do you ask them, say, Ms. Johnson, do you mind if I call your insurance company to see what's going on? What's your verbiage for that?
Yeah, so everything along the way is a series of questions. The living benefits side is, so who do you have with your dental? Great. How does that work? Wonderful. This is how we can help you. Who do you have with your vision? Great. This is how we can help you. It's an emotional trek that we take them on, that we keep asking them questions and they don't get hurt by the answer. So by the time we get to life insurance, so who are you paying on your life insurance? I have Lincoln Heritage. Great. In a couple of minutes, we're going to call after we ask how long you had it, what are you paying, those kind of things. A couple of minutes, we'll call them. We'll see what upgrades you're eligible for. Stop, move on to a couple of other things, then circle back to it. Don't be like a shark with blood in the water and just grab onto it. It's just part of the things that we talk about. And now I'm going to circle back. I have my phone. I have probably at this point 40 different carriers saved in my phone. So if they say they have whoever, most likely it's in my phone. I'm just going to call them. And while I'm dialing, I'm telling them what we're going to do. So Mrs. Johnson, we're calling MetLife. We're going to ask to do coverage verification. I'm telling them that I'm a benefit coordinator here in Georgia. They're going to ask you to verify your name, your address, usually your birth date. Sometimes it's the last 4 of your social. And then they'll ask to give me permission to ask them some questions. Okay, great. So we do it. That whole thing plays out. It builds trust with them. And then I've got my cheat sheet where I'm interrogating the carrier and getting them to give us every information that we need.
Let's hold on that point, guys. So listen, he's instructing them on what they are going to do, right? He's not asking, do you mind? Is it okay, right? So take that out of your vocabulary. We're going to give the carrier a call in a couple of minutes, and we're going to see what upgrades you are eligible for, right? So that wasn't a question. That was a statement. So if you're asking the question, stop. I'm going to give you guys a couple of points too. If you're having trouble with them grabbing their policies, I like to say you can appeal to two things, either the fear or greed. Okay, fear or greed. Now, what do I mean fear? Somebody says they have Lincoln Heritage. I'm like, look at that face, y'all. That face. Let me get in close. Man, that face has made me so much money. Can y'all see that? Oh, man. It's just a concerned face, right? And when you make that face, they're gonna be like, what's going on? I didn't say nothing. I'm just, oh, man. Ms. Johnson, unfortunately, what I've seen in this area with so many people with Lincoln Heritage, that they're just overcharging the community. And I just want to make sure they didn't put you on one of those plans and where they're overcharging you. Go ahead and grab that. Let's make sure you're not paying too much. Head down, go ahead and grab that. Okay. So so fear. So look, Primerica. Oh, well, it doesn't matter who they say. Oh, right. So fear, or you can appeal to their greed. Yeah, I got Lincoln Heritage. Man, I was able to get the last lady I sat with Lincoln Heritage, $5,000 cash back, Ms. Johnson. Hey, maybe I can get you 5,000. Maybe I can get you more. Let's see how much money I can get you. Go ahead and grab that policy, head down. Right? So I'm appealing to, hey, fear or greed, right? It works. Okay. Carlos, did you have anything else on that point, man? Getting them to get their policies?
Yes. So you build a great rapport, and like Brian said something very important earlier, you have to be able to listen to what they're saying, because most of the times they know where you're there. You're going to talk about life insurance. So sometimes you have seniors throwing there while they're building a rapport. Oh, and I'm taken care of, man. I got, reliable. I've been with them for 30 years. And I'm just like, okay, great. I'm not going to say anything at that point. I'm building rapport. From there, This is exactly what I do. Well, look, Mrs. Johnson, let me get out of your way. I'm going to go over 3 different things today. I'm going to go over a health service discount card. It's going to give you discounts on any prescriptions that you have. I'm going to go over a dental plan. It's going to give you some discounts, hearing aids, and a vision. And then the second thing we're going to go over is a little booklet. It's going to give you discounts, all the places that you go. See, this is not nothing that you have to pay for. Actually, all of these discounts, seniors already have it. They're just not aware of. So I'm going to make sure you're aware of where you can get discounts. The last thing that we do a policy service review. Now, I'm not here to try to sell you any life insurance, but the reason we do a policy service review is because most of our seniors already have a life insurance in place and a burial policy. And why do they have one? Because they're at that age where they're prepared. Now, the only issue with that, man, and look at my face. I want you guys, is very important what Brian said. Look at my face. And the only issue with that is that a lot of our seniors got that policy a long time ago, and they don't realize that they're already overpaying on that policy. So if that's the case, I might be able to get you some money back, and that's at no cost to you. The second thing that I might be able to do is that if you might actually qualify to actually keep about 80% of the policy, and you can actually stop making payments. That way, that $150 you're spending a month, maybe you might be able to just put it in your pocket instead of paying the company. But I'll do that towards the end. Let me go ahead and I'll go over the first things that I went over first, which is the health service discount card. So I just planted this shit big time. And now they don't, most of the times, they don't even care about what I'm going to go over, but I'm making them wait because I'm in control. Right. But all they heard is that, oh, wait, he's going to give me money back if I had the policy for 20 years. Because most of our seniors are tired of paying a life insurance for 20, 30 years. You have to think about that. Right. So now I go over the discount and the booklet. And now when I get to life insurance, all right, now, Mrs. Johnson, do you have any burial policy or life insurance? Oh, yes, let me go get them. Bro, every single time they'll come up with a stack like this of life insurance. So it's not, I really don't get any rebuttals. I've been doing a lot of training the last month. I must say I had someone in the car with me about maybe 4 to 5 days out of the week. And I don't think they've ever seen me get an objection to getting policies. Like, I don't get objections. It's easy. That would be probably the only thing I want to add into asking for policies.
Sure. So Joe, let's get into the call, man. So guys, listen, here's the thing. And look, I was guilty of this early in my career. I was a master at adding on. Boy, I added on some insurance, right? My thing was to let's go ahead and fill in the gaps, right? For the rising costs. Let's fill in those gaps. So I was constantly filling in gaps. But what I wasn't doing every time was calling the carrier. Here's the reality. Even if you get them to get the policy, well, the policy isn't going to tell you everything you need to know. You need and want to call the carrier. So Joe, let's get into that, man. You're calling the carrier. Let's dive into that. What goes on after that?
Yeah, so it's during normal business hours. We know the carrier's name. We have the carrier's phone number. We're calling the carrier. Usually you get put on hold. Sometimes it's a couple of minutes. Sometimes it could be a long time. I use that hold time, which can be uncomfortable, to educate the client. So I have my cheat sheet. Somebody asked if I could send it out. Brian, I'll send it to you. If you could send it to everybody, that'd be great. So what I do is I just go through my cheat sheet, and here's the information that we're going to ask them, and this is why we're going to ask them. So we want to verify that you're both the insured and the owner. The owner has all of the rights to the policy. We want to make sure that's the case. We want to look at when you started the policy. What was the inception date or the effective date of the policy? Some policies have things that are triggered by how long you own them. So we want to know when you started the policy. Then we're going to ask the question, is it term, universal, or whole life? Now, the reason we want to know that is the only permanent policy that's out there that will last longer than you, guaranteed, is a whole life policy. Your term and universal policies are meant to expire or to terminate. So we want to make sure what type that you have. We want to verify what your premiums are. We want to verify if they're going to stay level for the rest of your life, if they're going to go up, or if they could go down, which means they could go to zero because it expires. Then we'll see if there's any loans or anything negative against the account. You never know unless you ask. And then we'll look at the riders and the benefits that you have on your policy. Now, you said you own that for about 5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years ago, there weren't a lot of things like living benefits. And again, depending on how much time I have while we're on hold, I'll go through and answer all of these questions and why they want to have it. If we get interrupted, I just start asking the questions.
Now, yo, that's an important point, right? We talk about the reduced paid up. We talk about the loans, not as much, but we do talk about extended term. But an important point that he mentioned was riders. Don't forget that, right? The riders and the living benefits. These are points that you can leverage. You don't have the accelerated death benefit in your policy, man. We actually had a woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness, Ms. Johnson, and she was able to use that money to pay for a life-saving treatment. Had she not had that in place, Ms. Johnson, she might not be here today. Man, this is such an important point or part and piece of that policy. Why don't you have this? That's crazy. Our company will actually give you that free of charge. It's included in your plan. You don't have accidental? With all the accidents and crazy things that are happening these days, why didn't they give you this, Ms. Johnson? Man, we got to take care of that, right? You're making it like, and listen, guys, it's reality. If you can get it for free, accelerated death benefit or a nursing home rider, guys, these things are valuable. The story I just told you is true, right? There was a woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness who used that money, and had she not had it, then you know what? She may not be here. True story. You say, I don't have one like that. Take mine, okay? You can have it, all right? Send me just 10%. I'll send you my writing numbers. We'll talk about it after the call. But anyway, let's get to Carlos. If you're looking at a whole life or a term, all right? Let's stick on whole life and term. What are all the questions you want to ask?
Okay. So, like I said, I get all the policies. And then the first thing I want to do is I want the client to tell me what he thinks he has. Because most of the times what he thinks he has is what the agent told him. So I said, all right, Mr. Brian, when did you get the policy? When you were 55? Okay. So that was about 15 years ago. Okay, cool. Now, is it whole life or term? It's whole life. Okay, well, I'll ask, how much are you paying? Let me give an example. So 15,000, you got it around 15 years ago, you're paying $90 a month. Awesome. Okay. So everything is in what I'm doing in my head. I'm moving my head up and down. Okay. I want them to start shaking their head up and down too. Okay. $90, and that's $15,000. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Now, have you ever had a loan on the policy? If they don't know what's a loan, you ever call and they're giving you money on your policy? If they say no, I'm writing it down. I want them to see that I'm writing everything down. Okay, awesome. Okay. Now, so no loan, and you have the policy for 15 years. So I'll pull my phone out because I already did the math in my phone, but I'm going to put my phone right in front of their face, and I'm going to pull out my calculator. And I look at them first, and I'm like, all right, Mrs. Johnson, let me hold on. Let me do the math real quick because something doesn't make sense. And my face is just kind of like Brian. It has to express your feelings. So I'm like, just something doesn't make sense. So I'll pull out my calculator and I'll go ahead and put in $90 times 12. So that's a year. All right, Mrs. Johnson. So you're paying around, I believe, $1,200, I think, every year, right? I'm sorry, 1,080, right? 1,080 every year. Yes. Okay. Let's multiply that times 15 years. That's how long you had the policy. Yes. Okay. And the equals amount is 16,200. At that moment, I look at Ms. Johnson and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, so if you pass away right now, you paid $16,000 and 200, but the payout is only 15,000. And at that point, they're confused too. They're looking at me and they're looking at my phone, and I'll do it again just so they can see it again. And then I'm like, all right, Ms. Johnson, let me ask you first a few medical questions before we keep going. And I'll ask all the medical questions: heart attack, stroke, cancer, diabetes, everything that I need. If they're healthy, completely healthy, and I can get them day one coverage again, I'll go ahead and do two things. All right, Mrs. Johnson, if you're pretty healthy, okay, so if you live another 10 years, you're gonna pay $27,000 on a policy that's only gonna pay out $15,000. Does that make sense to you? And they're like, no, right? Okay. And then I go, okay. And you said that because I already asked the 4 reasons why they fill that out. They wanted to add a little more coverage, right? So they wanted to add about maybe another 5,000 for their expenses. So what I just did, I went ahead and made switch a sale from maybe another $40 to maybe about $150. And this is the way I do that. Well, look, Ms. Johnson, let's do this. I'm gonna go ahead and call the company and I'm gonna figure what's going on. When I call them, I'm gonna let them know that I'm a friend. He's gonna be on speaker the whole time. And I'm gonna ask him all these questions that I just asked you. I am gonna act a little dumb because I don't want them to tell them that I'm an insurance agent, because sometimes they'll hang up on me, or sometimes they'll do a lot of pushback. But it's gonna be on speaker. You're gonna hear everything, and I ask all those questions, right? And then I'll ask, what's the reduced paid up option? What is the cash value?
So, okay, so reduce paid up, y'all write this down, right? If you're new, or if you don't, one of the questions you want to ask first is this whole life, is this term, right?
Mhm.
What is the reduce paid up? If it's a whole life, right? What else?
What is the cash value?
What is the cash value? Write that down. What else?
Is there any loans in the policy?
Mm-hmm.
You'll be surprised how many people have loans and they're like, I never took a loan out. If that's actually true and the client never took a loan out and maybe something happened where they missed a few payments and the policy started eating up the cash value, they're gonna be so mad. But anyways, so if there's no loans, perfect. So in this example, if they already paid in $16,000, the cash value might be, depending on the company, if they might have anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000. Okay. The reduced paid up option might be around maybe $10,000, just a little more or less. So I write those down and I tell the lady, okay, thank you, and hang up. Now look at Mr. Bryant. Hey, Mr. Johnson. So these are the options. I pull out my little calculator. If they're completely healthy, I'll try to find the cheapest company. So most of the times it's just whatever company you're gonna use. Make sure that you actually looking out for the client. So let me give an example. For this client, the client is now 70 years old and he's looking for a $20,000 policy. So I'll give you these options. All right, so these are the options that I have for you, Mr. Bryan. Definitely, we're not going to keep this, because if you keep the policy as it is, you're going to overpay on the policy. So I wouldn't want that for myself. I wouldn't want my mom wouldn't want my mom overpaying on something. So the first option that you have, you can get day one coverage on a $20,000 policy. Now, it is not going to be $90. It is going to be $140. But what we can go ahead and do is we're gonna get you back the $6,000, grab about $2,000-3,000 from there to offset the price from what you're gonna pay extra, and we'll go ahead and get you a new $20,000 policy. Now you have an extra $5,000, and at the same time, you have $20,000 policy that you're never gonna overpay on. Or we can do the reduced paid up option. The reduced paid up option is gonna allow you to keep $10,000 of coverage, and you don't have to make any more payments, and we can just go ahead and add another $10,000 for only $110. So it's still about $30 more expensive, but you're gonna have $20,000 now, because you're gonna keep the $10,000 from the reduced paid up and add another $10,000, but you won't get the money back.
So
Which option works best for you?
So let me come in on you right there. So guys, he's leveraging the loans, he's leveraging the reduced paid up, he's leveraging the cash value. So don't be mistaken in thinking because your price is higher, it may seem higher, don't think that you're at a loss, right? You're at a disadvantage, because you're not. You get this information and you can normally a lot of times put them in a better situation. I want to add one more thing to that. Extended term. Start asking that. What's the extended term? Okay. And then final point before I go to Joe, if you get somebody, is this term or is this whole life? Because a lot of times these people have AARP, they have a Globe Life policy, they have a Primerica, and they will swear on a stack of Bibles, y'all, that they have whole life insurance. Oh, it's whole life. It's whole. I've heard it a million times. It's whole life, and they just know it. It's not that they're lying. It's just that they don't know, right? Now, you get somebody on the phone and the carrier on the phone, and you ask them, is this term or whole life? They say term. You want to look at Ms. Johnson. Oh, okay, now let me ask you this. When does this term end? Write that down. When does this term end? Oh, it's going to end next year. Wow. Okay. And will the price change or does it just end completely? Well, the price is going to change. How much will it go up to? Well, it's going to go from $50 to $500. Mutual phone, Miss Johnson, did you know that? Does it go up every year after that, or how does that work? Yes, it's going to go up every year. What about the following year? $600. In the next year, $700. Miss Johnson, did you know that, girl? Oh my goodness. Now, or what if it ends? It's going to end next year. Does she get any money back? She's been paying on it for 20 years. Is she going to get any money back on this policy? Now, you know it's term insurance. No, she's not, but you want her to hear that. So she's not going to get anything. Mute the phone. Miss Johnson, did you know that? I've heard enough. I've heard enough. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Boom. Now she's heard the carrier, right? And like Joe said, you let the carrier hang themselves. Now, guys, we know they're not going to get anything back, but you still want to ask that so that way they can hear. Joe, let's talk about anything to add on to that. And I want to dive in. I know you're a master when it comes to universal life policies. Guys, take some notes. Universal life are the most complex policies out there, and you don't want to get hung up. Joe's going to enlighten us on that, man. Dive into it, mad scientist.
Yeah, before we get to the universal, just one point on the whole that I've sold so many policies with is you ask the question about the whole life. I call it, how much is the cash value or the equity in the policy? And they tell you they have $2,012 in cash value in the policy. I refer to it as equity. People understand equity in a home, equity in a business. So they have equity in their policy. And then you ask the carrier, now, when Mrs. Johnson passes away, does the family get the death benefit and the equity, or just the death benefit?
That's good.
Oh, they just get the death benefit. So they're going to get, as my screen went out, they're going to get $12,000, and the insurance company keeps the $2,000 to offset the risk. The family doesn't get both, right? Then they have to tell the truth. Yeah, they're not. The cash value is available for them. The equity is available for them while they're alive. What's the best way for them to utilize that equity? It could be a loan outside of the policy. It doesn't even have to be a policy loan. A lot of our families are saddled with predatory lenders. They have buy here, pay here car loans. They have, 30% credit card interest. They've got 80% finger hut bills. You can raise their insurance premiums by $30, but save them $70 on a predatory loan. That's an ethical reason to replace it if they're healthy.
That's
right?
strong. That's strong.
So I love the word equity. People can relate to equity. What's the best way to use that equity? Because you lose that equity when you die. It goes to the insurance company. And that just irritates people. I want my money. Well, let's see what we can do with your money. Let's do it. Yeah. So universal. We love universal policies when we run into them, when you know what you're doing. Some of our biggest sales will come from universal policies. They are extremely complicated in the most of the time that we're talking to people. Most of the time, the clients have no clue of how they work. Most of the time when we call the carrier, sometimes the people that are explaining it don't have a clue of how they work. If you can educate yourself and become proficient in understanding the model of a universal life policy, how it works, the 6 things you really need to know about a universal life policy, they will see you as an expert upon the expert to do that. So basically, first step is you need to know what a universal life policy is. A universal life policy is a term policy that has a savings account. All right. So what does term do? Term goes up in price as we age. That is what is called the underlying cost of insurance. So we always have to ask, what is the underlying cost of insurance, not the planned premium. So they can have a planned premium of $150 a month they've been paying it for 20 years. They think it's going to last forever for $150 a month. But as we know, fundamentally with term, as they age, it gets more expensive. As they get close to life expectancy, 75 and beyond, that curve of that cost just goes straight up like a rocket ship. So the second thing to understand and be able to explain to the client is a term called the tipping point. The tipping point in a universal life policy is when the underlying costs exceed the planned premium. So in the beginning of a universal life policy, you're paying $150 a month. The cost of insurance, the true cost of insurance for a 50-year-old is only $25 a month. They're putting $125 into their savings account. That cash value is growing. But as that underlying cost of insurance goes up, there will be a point in the policy where it exceeds the price of the planned premium and it starts to erode the cash value. So if it starts to decline and you're beyond that and you're starting to eat away at that, eventually it will take the cash value away. And to keep the policy in force, you have to pay the underlying cost of insurance, which when they illustrate that usually is crazy expensive. Now, you have to also know that not every universal life policy is going to blow up. Now, it's in our favor when they're going to blow up, of course, but there are what are called no lapse guarantee riders. And I'll give you an example. I had a 72-year-old lady yesterday. She had a $100,000 policy. She was paying $160 a month. I could tell from the price it was not whole life. We called, it was universal life. I gave her the Brian face. Oh no, what is it? And then we got to, it had negative equity in the policy, which the only way you can have negative equity is if you have a no lapse guarantee. So we got through the call. I congratulated her, told her whoever set it up in the beginning, that was the best thing she could ever have. She should never replace that. She should eat macaroni and cheese before she replaces that policy. And she was like, oh, wow. But that policy had no living benefits. She had no coverage. So we sold her a policy for a little bit of a Medicaid planning to help with a nursing home expense so she could pick where she wanted to live later in life if that was the case. And I'm going back tomorrow to sell the daughter because no one had ever explained the universal policy and how it worked and where it went to do that. So things you need to know on your universal life policy are the planned premium. It's just a guess. It's just how much do you want to pay? Most of the time you'll see terms like flexible, adjustable, targeted. You can pay whatever you want to pay, right? As long as there's cash value in it to fund the difference, they don't really care. That'll keep it from there. The policy will build cash value, so it feels like whole life from that perspective. And when you're calling the carrier, you want to ask, what is the underlying cost of insurance, sales charges, admin fees, and policy fees? How much is being charged internally every month against the policy? They should be able to tell you that. Sometimes if you ask what the future is going to be, they won't tell you. And they try to skirt around giving you the facts. One way to get the facts and that you can illustrate how much that underlying cost of insurance has gone up is to request that they pull up the historic annual statements. A universal life policy by rule is required to send out an annual statement of value because they have to project how long it's going to last, both in guaranteed value and non-guaranteed value. A whole life policy does not have to send out an annual statement. A term life policy does not have to send out an annual statement. If they get an annual statement, most likely it is either a universal or a group universal or some kind of fluctuating policy. So if the carrier tries to get sneaky and they'll say, we have to run an illustration to tell you what the future is going to be, you can look to the past to get a pattern. How much was the cost of insurance 2 years ago? How much was it last year? How much is it this year? Oh, the cost of insurance is going up 14% a year.
Pay attention to that, guys. Okay.
14% a year. Oh my goodness. So a fun little math game you can play is there's a game called the Rule of 72. You take whatever your interest rate is, divide it into 72, and that's how long the debt will take to double or your investment will take to double. So if you had 14%, it's about 5 years that you're going to have 70%, right? So a little bit over 5 years, that cost of that premium is going to double if it stays at that rate.
Right.
But most of the time when it hits mid 70s, it escalates 25, 30% a year. It's ridiculous if they don't have a table or if the policy doesn't have a table. So you can go and have the carrier hang themselves by looking in the rearview mirror and showing exactly what it is. They have to be able to pull it up. They have to tell you when you ask, they have to tell you the truth of what, so you can illustrate that that underlying cost of insurance is accelerating, and either they're at a tipping point, their cash value is already declining, or in a couple of years, they're going to be there. The best place to switch is when you've just hit that tipping point. You've maximized your cash value in the policy. So you're going to be able to illustrate that that policy is going to run out of cash, and for them to keep it, it's going to become very expensive. If you have the carrier on the phone, 2 questions that you want to ask about a universal life policy is on the last annual statement, what was the guaranteed time period that this policy will last at the current premium? On that annual policy, they have a projected lifespan and a guaranteed lifespan. Projected lifespan is based on an interest rate calculation. It's projected. It's not guaranteed. So most of the time it gets close to that, but I always talk to them about the guaranteed side because that's all they're legally obligated to do is the guarantee. And in life, we typically buy insurance for guarantees. So, Mr. MetLife, can you tell me on the last annual statement, what was the projected duration of this policy on a guaranteed projection? Well, that's going to last until she's 77 years old. Oh, she's 74. Oh, nice. Oh. So basically what we have, Ms. Johnson, is we have a 3-year term policy that's guaranteed. After that, your cash value could go away. You'll have to pay an ongoing. Now, you can keep this forever, but every year or every month, in some cases, your policy is going to go up. And it's going to go up at a rate that most people can't afford to have. And then you start doing the math, 20% increases over the cost of insurance goes up and up and up and up and up. And they are scared to death. And before you get off the phone call with the carrier, they're like, get me out of this. I want out now. What? Right. Hold on. Let me get the rest of the news here to do that. But if you find out that they have a no lapse guarantee, it's perfect. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Right. But if there isn't that, which the vast majority of ones that are more than 4 or 5 years old do not have that rider, and they will blow up, and they're just potentially evil for the client. So the things you want to know on a universal life policy are: what is the underlying cost of insurance, sales charges, admin fees, any other policy charges? What is that? Are those fees or those charges contractually guaranteed, or are they set at market value? If it's contractually guaranteed, you can look into the contract and you can see what exactly it's going to be. If it's market driven, it's up to the whim and fancy of the insurance company and the board, the governor of insurance in your state, of how much they can raise rates internally every year. That's not a very safe feeling either to do that. What is their cash value now? Are they still in a positive cash value, or are they in a negative cash value? Have they crossed over that tipping point? If they've crossed over the tipping point, it's like pouring water out of a glass. Eventually, it's going to be empty. And the older you get, the further the cup turns down. Your cash value is draining out of that, and it will dramatically decrease. So we're looking to find out how long is that policy guaranteed to last them. That's the whole answer to the universal life conundrum. And they think they have a whole life. It's typically a big number that they have in a death benefit, typically a pretty good premium. And they've been paying on it for a long time. And you deliver the news and they're just crestfallen. It's just horrible news. So you're just there to help them. What are we going to do with this? Let's rescue that cash value. I can't get you $100,000, but Ms. Johnson, you really only have $100,000 for 3 years left, right? So how much do you, and then it's just putting together the big report, burial, income, gifts. What else do they want the money for? What's real? Let's make it safe, secure, and you're being consultative at that point. But all of this, they have just torn themselves a new one as you're talking to them.
Sure. Guys, that is why he is called the mad scientist, okay? Guys, so universal life, understanding how to use it and just asking the right questions, guys, you know, again, will help the client and leave them better off. And you know what, in the process, you'll help yourself and help your family by being able to make the sale. So awesome job. Thank you so much, Carlos, for being on. Gladiator, thank you so much, mad scientist. Now, really quick, guys. Okay, we got about a couple minutes. Okay, I'll leave y'all with this. So Friday, if you're on Team 300, if you're not on Team 300, talk to your manager. Maybe we can make the switch. Okay, Joe, call me afterwards.
All right,
we'll see what we can do, brother. But if you're on Team 300 on Friday, okay, not only will we do the app bonus, each app that you write is going to be that bonus for each e-app that you write. We're also going to, from the top writer for Friday, we're going to give you $150 cash bonus. And guess what? We're going to do the same thing on Saturday as well. We're going to give you those bonus per e-app and another $150 for the top writer on Saturday. That 150 plus that 150 equals 300. That's kind of why I came up with the number 300. I like the number. Okay. All right. So guys, thank you so much for being on. Hope you took some notes. Hope you got a lot from this. I know I did. All right. Replacements aren't bad. All right. Ethical replacements are a great thing. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Love you guys. Appreciate each one of you. Let's go out and have a big day. Friday, Saturday, $300. Go out and win it. God bless you.